everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. And today we have with us Felipe, all the way from Sao Paulo. And I hear it's raining a little bit today. How's everything going? How's life in Sao Paulo?
Hi all, hi everyone. Life is good. Life is good. Not as good as it should because of that whole pandemic situation. But it's
Yeah,
raining a lot here. But I love raining. So
you love rain. You know what? I mean, like maybe you should move to Norway. Like there's a lot of rain.
yeah,
Bit colder maybe, but
yeah.
it's nice. Felipe, I think we're just gonna dive right into it. We're gonna touch a lot about, the startup ecosystem, working with sports startups, like your journey, and like giving like some tips and advice of like, why students particularly should have a look on like working with startups, because there's a lot of potential there, and I don't think everyone is really aware of like, the possibilities and the potential of getting your foot in the door with startups. And there's so many new startups coming up. I mean, like we're being one of them. We recently talked with Ashok from Edison that I know you've been helping out with, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of good startups like making an impact in the sport industry. And if there's something we learned, over the last few months, is that, having a focus on data, technology, and how to utilize that in terms of your sport, will be extremely important moving forward with the current pandemic situation and everything going on. So, Felipe, first of all, thank you for joining the podcast. It's a pleasure having you here. And I think, if you could just share a little bit about your background, a little bit about your professional experience, then that would be great. So we can dive right into this interesting topic that we have today.
So first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. So I'm a journalist. I started my career working at Global, actually basically Sport TV, which is Global's sports TV channel in Brazil, is the biggest sports channel in Brazil.
Nice.
I worked there for 5 years, and I was a producer and a broadcast coordinator. Then I left and I started my own company. It was an entertainment company, and we did some music shows and some huge parties, not only in Rio, my hometown, but in other Brazilian states too. But then, due to a wrong business decision, we failed. But yes,
Part of
but that
startup life
experience,
too.
but during that experience, I kind of fell in love with business management.
Yeah.
And so I started a master's degree in business management.
Nice.
And it was during that master's degree that I had the first contact with new technologies and with all the innovation movement that was happening around the world. So it was the first time that I heard about artificial intelligence, about robotics, about nanotech, about genetic engineering, quantum computing, and all that stuff.
All the
And I
fancy
fell
stuff.
yeah, and I fell in love again. And since then, I started studying a lot those technologies and how they would impact society.
Right.
And I always like to write a lot. So I started writing some articles about new technologies, not in sports, but in all the sectors of the society. And I started posting it on LinkedIn.
Nice.
And after a few months, I was invited by Jornal do Brasil. Jornal do Brasil, it's a historical newspaper in Brazil. And they invited me to have a weekly column there to write about innovation and new technologies.
That's great.
And I stayed there, yes, and I stayed there for almost a year. I think it was a year. And then all of a sudden, the Brazilian Basketball League, they were looking for someone with experience in sports broadcasting, because they were about to start producing and distributing their own content, their own broadcasts.
Right.
And I applied to the job and they invited me. So that's when I moved to São Paulo. And I started working there. My main position was a broadcast coordinator. So I planned and ran all the broadcasts, 100% of the broadcasts that we did during last season. And I also started taking some startups from Brazil and from around the world to work with the league.
Mm,
And I always like to give the one example, which is WSC, which is an Israeli company that uses AI to automate the video content production, which is
nice.
really, really cool. And it was something that helped a lot, the league.
Right.
And but during the pandemic, the competition was canceled, basically as every sports competition around the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
So I left the league, and after 1 month, I was invited by Pluri, and Pluri is a management consulting firm in Brazil that works with a lot of football clubs here,
Mm,
and they have Enzima. Enzima started as a sports tech, more a venture builder of sports tech here in Brazil.
right.
But they invited me to start kind of another arm of Enzima, which is a innovation consulting firm
Nice.
specialized in sports entities. So now I'm the head of business development there, and we are trying to build innovation and sports tech ecosystem here in Brazil.
That's awesome. And you've been touched upon like several different verticals, in the sport industry, from the biggest media company,
Yeah,
broadcaster, to like the basketball league, to like startup life, and now,
exactly.
like, focusing on innovation. But I think like there's one common thread here, though, I would say, like, is your focus on new innovation and technology, which I think is giving you a very giving you different kind of opportunities. And as you talked about as well, like, by being the writing a lot of column like stories for like that a leading historical news entity in Sao Paulo as well, then being able to provide like some key insights. And I think that resonated a lot with how can you provide value. And we always talk about, like, students and professionals like sharing content, but what we don't talk about is like, well, there's a lot. It's very easy to share, oh, Barcelona signed a new partnership agreement, right? Great, but
Yeah.
everyone can read that. But what about, like, what are your thoughts on this partnership? Like, what
Yes.
can it lead to? What's the value that you're adding to? And that's sort of like what makes you a sport professional, in a sense. But let's, Felipe, let's dive a little bit into the whole, startup your startup journey. Like, take us a little bit from, like, first of all, like, your experience on your own venture, and now kind of like your focus on helping the innovation side of in Sao Paulo. Like, take us a little bit through that journey.
Yeah, actually, I didn't have a startup. My company was kind of a small business.
Yeah.
I don't like to say that it was a startup because we didn't have any technology. We were just, producing entertainment events
Right.
in
Right.
Brazil. Uh, but my interest in startups started later when I started my master's degree.
Nice.
When I started studying about new technologies, I started to take a look on what was going on around the world and all the companies that were emerging from all around the world. And today here in Brazil, we are trying to build a sports tech ecosystem because we think that sports entities, they should be looking at it.
Right.
Now, consumer habits nowadays, they are changing so much faster than the sports entities can keep up with.
Yeah.
So they should be looking to startups. They should be looking to the ones that are building the new technological solutions that will help those sports entities to serve content and serve their fans the way that their fans wants to be served.
Right.
So we are trying to build something here in Brazil. Actually, we have a few startups from the sports sector here, but we don't have an environment that is good enough to them.
Right.
So if you are entrepreneur here in Brazil, basically you are not stimulated to start a business focused on sports.
Hmm.
You will prefer to start something in the health business or
Yeah.
the educational business or retail or other sectors. But in sports, it's not well developed enough for an entrepreneur to start something because it's very hard to enter the market, and the biggest sports entities here are not professional enough. We have a lot of politics.
Mm.
Uh, So it's not easy,
All right.
but we are trying to start something here. We are trying to open the clubs so they can act like big labs where people can take their solution and start testing their solution in a high performance sports environment.
Right.
And actually, we started the first open innovation program in the Brazilian football 1 month ago, which
Nice.
is with Ceará. Ceará is an elite club from Brazil,
Hmm.
and we are looking for startups from all over the world in 8 areas to work with Ceará during 3 months and
Nice.
help Ceará in some areas. And after that, those startups have the opportunity to sign a paid contract with them to raise funds and to be in the market, and
Right.
maybe with a tested solution, and maybe go to other clubs and
Right.
start their journey inside the football environment. So that's what we are trying to build here. And I believe that startups are a very good opportunity for the students. We were talking about it before start
Right.
recording here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Usually students, they want to work for the biggest companies,
Yeah.
and when you are a student and you enter a bigger company, you
Right.
basically will be the one, serving coffee at meetings, and or doing
I've been
basically
there. Been there.
yeah, me too, or
Right.
doing basic stuff.
Right.
But when you work for a startup, you have the opportunity to do a lot of stuff. Everyone
Right.
should be
Because
doing
you don't
everything in a
have the
startup.
resources, and you just gotta,
Exactly.
and like if you want to put down the effort and you want to like learn, it's a great learning environment. And there's
Yes.
so much like, and if you want to make an impact on like where you're working, it's essentially the easiest place to do it, because I mean like everyone is so dependent on each other, and everyone got to help each other. And I'm also talking
Yes.
from experience, like I have my own startup, so I know
Yeah.
what it is. And it's very important for us like to have students like, first of all, understanding if this is something for them, but having an opportunity to like create something, like be
Yeah.
part of something that are changing or impacting the industry. And we always talk about like the pandemic situation, but out of crisis comes innovation. It's like a
Yes.
classic sign. And I think what you guys are doing in Sao Paulo and Brazil here now, like with this frameworks, it removes a lot of the barriers for the startups, which is going to be
Yeah.
very important. And I think there's a lot of other countries and areas that could help with this. But I think like, but definitely in sports, it might be a very there's a lot of potential for this, because again, like the sporting industry is a little bit, as you know, it's very well connected. It's very like a little bit old fashioned in how it runs. And it's like a student, right? It's hard to get your foot in the door unless you know someone, right? So you got
Yes.
to start somewhere.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like the same when you're a startup too, because they're used to using their tools, and they're used to like having it their way, and the way it's always been. It's been working
You
great,
have to, you when you work at a startup, you have to wear different hats, right?
Yeah,
You have to
100%.
to. So for me, it's the perfect environment if you want to learn something, and if you want to learn something in a shorter time frame than you would if you would go to a big company, because it's a very different environment.
But there's also a lot of potential though of like being part of a startup, right? I mean, like you don't know
Yes.
where it's gonna lead to, and of course, like
Yes.
there's maybe a lot more in like insecurity there, and like security that that okay, like there's a position waiting for you. But in many cases, like even with the big clubs, like they're doing this kind of like starting thing is like okay, just helping someone out to get experience, right? But with a startup, like if you deliver and you're a little bit lucky on the timing, you might actually be hired full time, or what it might be, right? Because
Yeah.
they're in a growth stage. They're in a completely different stage of like where they're heading. And that opens up also like, well, they got to recruit more people. So if you do a great job and you put down the effort, and I think also like with the project you guys are doing, Felipe, right, with the startups, is that okay, well, if they sign that agreement with the organization, okay, they will start getting money, and they can get more funding, they
Yes.
can hire more people. And then maybe the ones that were helping them early as students, or like as like interns, or like maybe some part-time stuff, they can be hired in full time, you know?
Exactly.
So there,
It's a great opportunity to be on the side of the companies that are building the future. They are building the new technologies, the new
right,
stuff. They are going to change the industry. So, and I totally agree with you. It's a very good opportunity that I think that every student should be looking for.
right. No, 100%. But what are some of the trends that you guys are seeing right now, though, in terms of, the innovation side of sports and sports tech in Brazil? Like, what is some of the stuff that you guys been focusing on? Like, what is important? What were some of the verticals that you are proposing to focus on with the football club in Brazil?
So we have 8 areas, and we have no from fan engagement, which
Yeah,
is I believe that the hottest topic when we talk about
fan
the
engagement
sports
everywhere.
industry. Yes, everyone is looking for new ways to interact with their fans,
Yeah,
to have no new line to add new lines of revenue to the organization.
right.
But we also have like other B2B uh, B2B opportunities. Like Ceará is trying to make its training center sustainable. So we are looking for startups with solutions that can help that. Uh, they have a hard time managing their sponsorship contracts. So we are looking for startups with solutions that can help that management of all their sponsorship contracts and all the deliveries that the
Mm,
contracts have. Uh, Social media analytics, uh, uh, video content production,
right.
and we have uh, smart venues. So we have a lot of areas that covers different sectors that we are looking for. And CRI is open to new solutions from all over the world. It's going to be an online program during 3 months,
Nice.
and they are open. We already got a lot of applications
That's great.
from startups from the UK, from the US, from India, from Singapore. So
Nice.
we are, yes, actually, this is something that I really like about the sports industry.
Yeah.
I think that it's easier for you to be a global company than it is in other sectors, because it's
Right.
not a sector that is well developed enough. If you go to the US, it is
Yeah.
very well developed. But if you go even in Europe, I think that it has so much room for growth that I think that if you are a startup in Brazil, or if you are a startup in Norway, you can come to Brazil and you can do a very good job, and you can start working with clubs here, and then you can
Like
go
we
to
already
other
have
countries in
clients in
South America.
Brazil, so
Ah,
it's like
so
just proves our point. I mean, like we have clients now in 10 countries. We actually went
okay.
over like, whoa, how did that happen?
Exactly. So you can see that it's not. Imagine if you were working, I don't know, with retail or
Yeah,
with health
that
or with
would be hard.
education.
Would be hard.
Exactly. So the sports industry, it gives that good opportunity for you to be a global company, even when if you are a startup.
Looking into the future, the beginner faces a choice that leads him to the triumph, or not. Being surrounded by like-minded professionals can be the best guarantee that you actually take that crucial career step.
SportinGlobal is a digital network for sports jobs. It gives you the chance to be involved in the sports industry no matter who you are, regardless of gender, nationality, and experience.
Our AI system matches up talent with human resources. Candidates who align with the company's values and needs immediately get shortlisted. It saves time for HR and increases the opportunities available to applicants.
The platform identifies tailor-made recommendations based on user needs, so you're always aware of the possibilities out there right now.
SportinGlobal is a place where students gain key tips about jobs and build the valuable connections that are essential for people at the beginning of their career path.
The path from candidate to champion starts with a single step in the right direction. Sign up to SportinGlobal.
SportinGlobal, the best way to enter the sports industry.
But let's also talk about a little bit on the global opportunities here, though, because I mean, like as a startup too, with the program that you guys been having, right? I mean, like I would assume like originally, like if it wasn't for the pandemic, you guys would have it more like physically, right? And hence,
Yes.
that would limit the opportunities of getting global startups like applying and being part of it, right? It would be a lot more challenging for them. But now when it's
Yes,
digitally, right, it opens up a lot more, them
exactly.
like accessibility for them to be part of it as well.
Yeah, but I think that it was kind of a trend. If you take the biggest acceleration programs in the world, I
Yeah,
don't know, maybe Y Combinator in the
sure.
Silicon Valley, one of the biggest, and they started their online program even before the pandemic
Yeah,
because people want to have access to global solutions.
right.
So the world we are living in a world that is global, that the internet is
So
giving that
connected.
possibility. It's everyone is so connected.
Yeah,
So I think that this was a trend before the pandemic, and now even more.
right.
So
Big time.
I think that this is this is something that people are looking for. Maybe a solution that is being developed in India will be perfect
Right.
for a club in Brazil. Like you said, you are a startup from Norway, and you developed a product that is perfect for basically all the sports organizations around the world, because you are trying to connect students to those sports organizations. So you develop something with a global mindset.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is something really pretty cool.
And it is very important, I think, as well. And if we started to dive like a little bit down into like now from like a student lens, right? And like thinking, well, I mean, like, yeah, I'm based in like Sweden, or like I'm in the UK, or like we're at US, right? And like, how do I help someone internationally, right? And I think like now more than ever, like you have the opportunity to work from home, and be remote and helping out whatever company you want. It opens up a completely different landscape. So instead of you just thinking, oh, what sport organization can I help locally, or like maybe nationally in my own country, now you can start almost thinking globally, and you can say, maybe if I wanted to work or study in the UK and I'm like from Norway, what startups, what companies are seeking like some remote work, and everyone is working from home or needing remote work. And then there's also a lot of potential where now a lot of companies and sports organizations have the opportunity to look and doing market research in different new markets, because, well, they didn't have the time to do it, they didn't have the resources, but now they have to expand. They have to think about, okay, how can we utilize different markets? And hence, if you're from Norway and there's a company that want to explore more the Scandinavian or the Nordic or the Norwegian market, you can work from Norway with this company and doing research for them and helping them out, maybe selling whatever services they are. And we already now, like a couple of days ago, we released like several new opportunities from a French startup that were like seeking ambassadors in different kind of countries, right? And that's a way for like where we can help those startups like get their like open up new markets. And the best thing is having like some local students, like young professionals trying to get their foot in the door.
It's a win-win situation, right?
Yeah,
it's a win-win situation, right?
Because it's a win-win situation. Get experience, and the startups get hands-on, experience.
Exactly. So I believe that, like you said, every crisis have their own opportunities, and I believe that this is a good opportunity that emerged from this horrific pandemic that we are living. Is this? Right. I think that the world is even more connected now, and people are starting to look for professionals everywhere. It doesn't matter where are you from. It matters if you are a good professional or not.
Right. No, like that's where it comes down to. Like, are you providing value? Are you passionate? Exactly. Like, what are you interested in? And take the effort. But Felipe, like, give me a couple like key tips here for like students like that want to like go into the like startup sports ecosystem. Like, where do you begin though? Because I mean, like, it might not be as easy finding those startups.
Yeah.
And where should you start? How should you start?
I would say that first you have to study a lot the market, and you have to be aware about the trends, about what organizations around the world are looking for, about the trends within the sports tech ecosystem. I could say 4 trends here. The first one is connected fitness, especially in the US, but usually the US, it's kind of the trend market, and then it spreads around the world. So we have a lot of startups, a lot of connected fitness startups there. Content, of course, content is very important, and fan engagement, content and fan engagement. The third one would be esports. It's huge now. It's growing faster. And the fourth, it depends on the country that you are, but betting, it's also a trend. Here in Brazil, betting is not legalized yet, but it's on the verge of being legalized. I believe that in the middle of next year it will be, and it's a huge market. The US now it's legalized. I don't know in Norway if it is.
Yeah, well, we have a sort of like very strict betting policy here. So we have like it's monopolized, so it's like a governmental entity sort of that runs it. So like say like in Norway, like especially in terms of sports, this is very like strict. So if you have like a company like Unibet or Betson or something, they can never go in and sponsor like any team or sports organization in Norway. Like no alcohol brand, no like anything like alcohol or betting can sponsor like any teams or like enter in from that kind of angle. But so it's a very tricky situation like here. But it is like it has its own system, which is more strict, like a stricter betting system to avoid like, all the addiction and everything going on. But
when I talk about betting, it's betting and fantasy, because fantasy
fantasy is also huge, especially in the US.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's a good opportunity. We are seeing a lot of sports entities and media companies that are working closely with betting companies too.
Right.
And so besides studying a lot and knowing a lot about the market, I would say that you should start producing your own content. But as you said, not just sharing news, but writing good articles with your opinion and trying to figure out why this potential partnership is important and what can we expect. Start producing interesting content, because I believe that people will start looking to you and say, oh, this guy or this girl, he or she knows what they are talking about.
Right.
And the third one is connection, man. As you said, sports industry, it's a very close industry. So you should start connecting yourself to people that you admire, using LinkedIn to do that, using platforms like SportinGlobal to do that, and starting to know people. You have to. I have this mindset here. I start sending messages on LinkedIn to a lot of people around the world, and some of them they don't even answer me, but a lot of them they do. Right. And I ask them for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes a talk, so I can present myself, so I can talk about my career, what I want, and ask that person about their opinion. And I believe that this is a good way to do that. Today, those social media platforms, they give you that opportunity. If you think about it, I don't know, 20 years ago, it was impossible to do that. You would have to call.
You have to call like with the old.
Yes, exactly. You have to take a list, and you have to call a company and say, hey, may I speak with the VP? And people say, who are you? And today you can approach those guys using tools like SportinGlobal, using tools like LinkedIn or other social media. So I believe that this is a very good tool for you to approach people and to make people get to know you. I think it's really important.
And I think there's one thing here that we just have to like wrap up with, is that even if you're now like, you've been in the industry for a long time, you've been doing a lot of different things, and you're still doing this, And this is
Yes,
very important.
exactly.
Like it never stops, like
Never
you can
stops.
always increase your knowledge, you can always increase your network. And if you're a student out there, and if like you want to like work in startups or whatever it is, like you have to take the initiative. No one is waiting for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So like if you want to reach out to a person, do it. I mean, like, and not everyone's gonna come back to you. That's just life, it's just part of the journey. But
Uh, uh,
for every
oh,
person that you reach out to, and like you can build really good connections, and there's a lot of great people in the industry, like Felipe, like others that are open to have those conversations
yes.
and provide some good value and feedback. But at the end of the day, you got to take the first step, and I can't
And I
emphasize
like
this enough.
I like to say that you already have the no, right? When you approach someone, you already have the no. So you only can get good things from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that like you said, you should have initiative. This is
Yeah,
very, very
100%.
important.
And this is like what separates people in the industry, like especially in sports, is like who's willing to put down the effort, who's doing the
Yeah,
extra, like who's going the extra mile. Because
yeah,
as you all know, as you guys are listening, and girls, here, the sport industry is all about passion, right? And it's a very attractive industry. And there's a lot of people that don't know, like obviously the mechanisms, and you guys are learning that. But this is why we're doing the podcast too, to shed light on how's the industry working, and hopefully giving you some guidelines and tips on how to succeed. Because at the end of the day, I mean, like we can give you as many tips and advice as we can, but at the end of the day, you got to take it. You got to do it. That's what it comes down to. I can say do this and do that, but if you don't do it, it's up to you.
exactly.
It-
It's
It's a
it's
very
all.
it's a very hard way to end this podcast, Felipe. So I think you gotta, like bring us some Sao Paulo, like Rio joy to wrap it up.
No, I think that it's a great tip, man. Because, like you said, no one is waiting for you. You have to build your own path.
Yeah,
This is.
100%.
I think that it's a great way to finish here because uh, we couldn't do a better tip than that.
I
If
agree.
you are
I
if
agree.
because if you are just waiting for someone to call you, no one will call you. You have to build your own path. You have to make people aware of who you are
Right.
and what you can provide them. So
Yeah.
this is very important. And today, I will repeat, we have the tools, all the tools to do that.
Right.
You can reach out to someone in Norway. You are in Norway. I am
Like I
I
mean,
am in
like you
Sao
can reach
Paulo,
out to
and
me. Like
yeah,
or Felipe.
exactly.
I mean, like
Yeah, exactly.
we're
And
both
we are
open.
talking now. So I believe that this is the best time for you to start building your own path, start building your own career, without having to depend on someone. Just
And make
depend on
make
yourself.
sure to check out the new startup opportunities at SportingGlobal.com.
Yeah,
A lot of
exactly.
great new
You
opportunities out there.
you just opened 6 new positions there to a
Yeah,
French startup. So
French startup.
we have
That
we have opportunities. We
that
have a
are
lot of
people
opportunities.
like they're seeking people like in Norway, in Sweden, in Denmark, in Spain, Portugal, and Switzerland. So there's a lot of opportunities there. So make
Exactly.
sure to grab that opportunity. And with that, Felipe, I would just like to thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a fruitful conversation, a lot of interesting stuff, and a lot of lessons that we can give away, and learning a little bit about talking about the startup ecosystem. It's fun. The startup world is it's its own little bubble of its own. And even in sports, it's a little thing. So yeah, once again, I will thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure. Thank you everyone for listening. I hope that my English was good enough for you to understand. I'm sorry about the mistakes that I made. So
No, it's great. I mean, like we're
but
both
it was a,
we're both, none of us are English has English as our first language. Like you just gotta deal with it. It is what it is.
the next podcast will be in Portuguese. So
Wow. That's not gonna work out. I mean, like then Eduardo has to do it. All right,
so
Felipe.
thank you so much.
Thank you. And with every video we do, we always finish with "Visnakis," which means "see you later" in Norwegian. All right. Thank you, Felipe.
Thank you. Bye bye.